Right, in this video, I'm going to take you through my own local SAP development setup, including the various tooling I use on a daily basis. These days, developers and functionals have so many useful tools at their disposal that development and solutioning in SAP is frankly easier than ever. That being said, the wide variety of tooling available can also be a bit daunting, and if that is the case for you, then I hope this video will help simplify things a bit. For me personally, almost all of the full stack SAP development projects I've worked on have more or less shared the same basic architecture. You have your backend ABAP system, which is where you expose your data in an API style using OData through services like SAP Gateway or CDS. Then you have your SAP Cloud Connector, which acts as the middleman, and that's to establish a connection between the on-prem SAP system and SAP Cloud Platform, either the Neo or Cloud Foundry environments. Then on top of SAP Cloud Platform itself, we would deploy a UI5 based front-end application. And the reason for deploying the apps straight to Cloud Platform is that you're not restricted by your UI5 version, which is normally the case when deploying on-prem. And finally, after that, you can integrate it into a Fiori portal if need be, which is effectively also hosted on SAP Cloud Platform. As far as my own local backend ABAP system goes, I'm running the SAP ABAP Developer Trial 7.52 Service Pack 04. I'm running it specifically on VirtualBox, inside of OpenSUSE Linux, and from what you can see here, whenever the system starts up, effectively you just run start SAP all. Oh, sorry, you need to change to I think it's npl admin, and then you can run start SAP all, and it'll run through the startup procedure. So this is where I would run my gateway server from, this is where I would run my CDS from, and anything I do from any of the tooling that I use would hit this system. Obviously, depending on what SAP system you work on, whether it's a development system for a client or your own at home, your mileage may vary. And I followed the blog posts, plural, written by Julie Plummer from SAP. She's made it incredibly easy to get going on whatever flavor you want to run with. So I would highly recommend you take a look at her blog post, which will be linked down in the description. You can also run these virtual machines in AWS or Google Cloud Platform, and I think Azure as well. But these are, however, paid services, so if you want to bear the additional costs to run these, you can. After speaking to a few people, they say that the cost is definitely worth it because it makes the setup process that much easier. Me personally, I still prefer my local ABAP system, just to learn how things work, especially from a basis point of view. And finally, there's also Docker. You can get a Docker image for the dev trial, so look out for a video coming soon on that. So the next thing is to take your backend system and connect it up to the SAP Cloud Platform, which is where we deploy most of our apps. To do that, you'll need to use SAP's Cloud Connector, and I personally use it running in Windows, so the Cloud Connector will run in Windows as I'm working, and it'll connect directly to my Linux OpenSUSE machine with the developer trial on it, and then that will run the connection to my SAP Cloud Platform trial account. So you would just navigate, for example, to a localhost with port 8443, and it'll ask you to log in. And once you're logged in, there are a whole bunch of settings that you need to do. You firstly need to connect your backend system properly, and then from there you need to get some details from your Cloud Platform account and then connect that to your Cloud Connector. And once you've done that, you will have a pretty solid connection as you go along. So you can find the SAP Cloud Connector under tools.hana.ondemand.com. Underneath you'll probably wind up on the home section, which we'll get to now with Eclipse, but you need to go to the Cloud tab, and if you scroll down, you will see Cloud Connector, and you can get the Windows version. You can also install it directly on Linux, but I found the Windows version a bit easier to work with. So that's it. Effectively, when it comes to the Cloud Connector, you install it on Windows, on top of your Linux machine, well, on top of Windows, on Windows, which would then connect to your running Linux machine and bridge that connection to Cloud Platform. So most of the projects I've worked on, the clients were using SAP Cloud Platform Neo Edition. Unfortunately, it seems that SAP are phasing this out in favor of SCP Cloud Foundry, which I suppose is fine, but I know most of us will be used to the Neo Edition, so there'll be a few things to learn there. I myself, for testing purposes at home, have already moved on to Cloud Foundry, so if you guys would like more videos on UI5 development in Cloud Foundry, do drop a comment down below. But if you do create a Cloud Foundry trial account, this is what you'll be presented with. You can then enter your trial account. You can work with SAP Business Application Studio. You can install the CLI, which is pretty fantastic, if I'm honest. And you can start working with some of the APIs they have there. If you scroll further down, you can still access your Neo trial for that short period, but I'd recommend you just go straight to the Cloud Foundry trial to get things going. But that would be the top tier of your full stack, or at least my full stack that I use at home. So I would run my UI5 application I would develop it and deploy it in SAP Cloud Platform, and then create a Fiori front end if I wanted to test something in a Fiori shell specifically. But yeah, as I say, it's all done through Cloud Foundry, which seems to be the future with SAP. So again, I'll put all these links for the Cloud Foundry trial in the description below. So now that you've seen how the full stack works on my local machine, starting from the backend to the Cloud Connector, all the way up to SAP Cloud Platform, I can now show you the tooling I use. And aside from working in SAP Web IDE, which I'll keep for a separate video, I use Eclipse and VSCode. So you can see in Eclipse I use ABAP developer tools, which gives me access to pretty much everything I need to work. It's a similar, obviously your folder structure looks exactly the same in VS Code. In Eclipse you do get a few more features that the guys are working on to get going in VS Code. So Eclipse for now is a little bit more stable. Personally, I prefer VS Code, but we'll get to that in a minute. So all the links to the ABAP developer tools I'll put in the description. And the only other differences, I've got the dark theme that I use here. and you can pick that up from the Eclipse marketplace. And I use the darkest dark theme with dev style 2020 whatever, and you can see it's installed, so that's what I use for the theme. And yeah, you can see I've got a CDS view over here. You can create your CDS view here. You can run with a dictionary object. You can create a gateway service. You can do pretty much everything from here, as well as access the GUI itself, which is very useful for testing if you're still tied in. I know a lot of guys use the ABAP debugger still because it's so fantastic. They don't necessarily enjoy the debugger in Eclipse, which I totally understand, because it doesn't look very nice and it's hard to read. So don't feel bad if you still use the ABAP debugger, because it truly is one of the best debuggers I've ever used. So yeah, that is Eclipse. Then finally, the other IDE I use is VSCode. More frequently so because I spend a lot of time in my non-ABAP projects here, and you'll see in one of the previous videos I did with the setup guide, it's really easy to get going, and you can find a link to that video as well in the description. But for the most part, you can see this folder structure is exactly the same as Eclipse. And yeah, it's brilliant. There's obviously shorthand, so you can create, where's the view here? You can create your annotation views, and everything's all loaded up here nice and neatly. I prefer the interface as well, and the look and feel of VS Code. So this is my personal preference, and it'll get better over time. I know that much. These are the extensions that I've got installed specifically for ABAP and CDS. There's the syntax highlighting for ABAP, the ABAP CDS language, which is what you saw just now, the ABAP remote file system extension from Marcelo, the basic ABAP snippets extension here, ABAP lint, which is fantastic, and also my own. I made this extension here called the advanced ABAP snippet generator, which I also use and update as and when. And then obviously there's the SAP UI5 layer. Previously, I'd obviously, at most of the clients I've worked on, I've worked in the SAP Web IDE, and so that's all fine. But now with Visual Studio Code, it's obviously there and easy to work with, and as it's my preferred IDE, you can see it's just as good as the SAP Web IDE, except I obviously think it's a little better. You can navigate like you would normally. You can see you've got your app router here, and when you build your your MTA applications, everything is pretty straightforward. It's in front of you and easy to do. Obviously, working in VS Code, I can do everything I need in one IDE, which is great as well. You can deploy from here, you can build your projects from here. I'll have a separate video coming up fairly soon that'll show you how to deploy straight from the command line, so look out for that. But otherwise, yeah, my UI5 development now happens almost completely in Visual Studio Code. So there you go. That is the tooling that I use at the moment, alongside SAP Web IDE. I deploy everything to the SAP Cloud Platform that is front-facing, or for any front-end apps I build. I then work with any gateway services, or CDS views I need to create on my local machine, and it's just become incredibly easy to run and test your solutions before you put them into production or even into a client's development system. It's also a fantastic way to learn new things. Even if you're a functional, there is now no excuse to get up and running, because there are blog posts and tutorials and videos that allow you to get going. So if you have any questions, please go ahead and leave a comment down below. If there are parts of the video that you really liked and you'd like to see a more involved or in-depth setup guide for any particular section, let me know. Everything again will be linked down in the description, so you can follow along in those various blog posts and tutorials there. And yeah, if you guys have any other suggestions or issues that you run into when installing or trying to run the setup similar to mine, do let me know and I'll help where I can. But otherwise, yeah, if you guys like the video, please don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. And as always, thanks for watching.